It's actually rather long. All right, okay. Kick V. How's it going, guys? I don't have V, so I can't kick V, but yeah. I'm just waiting for a few more people and then I will start. How's it going, Darkside? So I guess I'm going to start off with just reading some reviews from. So apparently, the reviews I read uh, Friday night for the gummy bears were not the original reviews. So I found the original reviews, and I'm going to read from them. There's not as many. I had to look up the old article to find them. Ah, well. Seems that this is all we're going to get for right now, so that's fine. All right. I'll give you a choice. We can read a 1-star review from Eat, titled Eat If You Dare, or a 5-star review titled April 25th, 2014, A Day That Will Live in Infamy. I know, tough choice, right? The 1-star? Okay. They're both about the same. Get right. I'm not going to kick you, Lo-Fi. All right. Eat If You Dare. 1 star by Joshua on February 1st, 2015. I sit here writing this review at 4 a.m. from my porcelain throne, a fixture you will become all too familiar with if you choose to eat these cute little bears from the pits of hell. I had to eat a pound of these little bastards after Man City must have thought they were playing American football the other week and lost to a team of Arsenal scrubs. They were a bit chewy, but overall appeared to be nothing more than your average gummy bears. After about 2 hours with little more than some mild stomach cramps, feeling like one would expect from eating a pound of any candy, I began to wonder if I'd gotten some duds. Like the slow build-up of a Martin Scorsese film, however, those bears were waiting for their baptism scene to destroy my insides. It started with the cramping, very akin to doing 1,000 crunches, and then being forced to hold the 1,001st crunch indefinitely. Then came the initial run, which opened to the proverbial floodgates. I'm over 30 and beginning to wonder if these bears know that and want to send me back to the can for each year I've been on this earth to make me wonder why I've ever been born. In between gastrointestinal bouts of pressure washing the inside of my toilet from my anus, I lay in bed feeling as if someone were to punch me in the stomach. I'd explode, turning the walls of my bedroom into a soiled Jackson Pollock rendition. To give you an idea, I spent $50 ordering a UFC pay-per-view only to willingly miss the last 2 to 3 fights on the main card because I didn't want to stray too far from my master bedroom. Thankfully for me and my marriage, fearing what might be coming, I convinced my wife to spend the evening at my sister-in-law's because, trust me, fellas, nothing will be gained from your significant other experiencing this with you. I'm no longer in pain, but I still have to make trips back to my master bathroom on regular basis. Eating these if you dare, but Eat these if you dare, but be forewarned. They are not to be trifled with unless you want your toilet to be a staging ground for repeat fecal rehearsals of the Red Wedding from Game of Thrones. Not bad. All right, I'll read the next one, which is April 25th, 2014, a day that will live in infamy. Just by an Amazon customer, so they are anonymous. It all started the day prior when my sugar tooth persuaded me to eat 2 handfuls of these sugar free delights. Fast forward 15 hours, 23 minutes, and 44 seconds. The world shook. All hell broke loose inside me. A sudden headache, my skin began to perspire, and something tore around in my abdomen with the force enough to make me latch onto the couch with both hands and let out a sheer cry that sent my dog retreating into the bedroom. She probably knew what she probably knew that the battle was already lost. I tried to make for the bathroom, but the pressure was so intense I had to wait it out on the couch until a lapse in the gut busting occurred and I regained control of my muscles. It took only moments before the volcano Mount Anus had blown its top. The air quickly turned poisonous from the methane and sulfuric fumes that spewed forth. Violence and terror are understatements of what happened in the next 45 minutes. I sustained third-degree burns from contact with the lava that flowed abruptly from my bowels. My blood pressure was at record levels, and my body mass was reduced by 4 pounds. After ample ventilation of the crime scene, I quickly took a shower and changed clothes because the powerful fumes had soaked through the fabric and into the skin. I almost had a mental breakdown in the shower after realizing those little gummy bears had nearly defeated such a man that I thought I was. I can now hardly bear to look forward to the night terrors and PTSD that would come of this horrid event. That one has 32 comments on it. All right, I can read the next one that's got a story to it, or I can find something else. It's just that the next one is actually really long. How's it going, Reaper? All right. Oh, this one is called "Performed Exactly as Advertised" by Jason Ellenberg on December 24th, 2014. To preface this, I will state that it is not good to upset anyone in the military supply network. This is especially true for the supply NCO, non-commissioned officer, who can be both creative and vindictive to those who earn his ire. One of my biggest pet peeves was troopies who walked into my supply room and decided to go through things on my counter or desk. It is for this reason that I purchased 2 bags of these sweet little revenge snacks. I briefed my minions that morning that the snacks were to be unsullied by their hands. I told them that I would know and it would not go unpunished by both myself and the higher powers. That they thought I was joking, but decided not to test my authority before my eyes. With that said, I placed the bowl on the back part of the counter just in reach of anyone loitering inside my supply room. The rules were posted for all to see when they came in, so they were warned. A large sign that said, "If you touch my stuff, you will be punished." They decided to test me, I guess. On this weekend, we were set to do general cleaning and maintenance within the battalion. So my desk was rather busy, the battalion headquarters supply room. I was in and out of my office all day. However, I made sure to take general measurements of my bowl of horror every time I came back. Shortly before lunch, my unholy wrath began to strike. My supply room is one door down from the latrines, and a row of male commodes is on the other side of the wall from my desk. It was the first, but it was not the last. It was initially heralded by the sound of Gabriel's trumpet escaping the sphincter of one poor soul. He hit the latrine and sounded as if he'd kicked the stall door open. For the next 30 minutes, I listened to the sounds of a live humpback whale being butchered by a blind man wielding a chainsaw. That's a that's an amazing description. Oh, it was not long before another troop, this time a female, made her way to the latrine. She came from the indoor pistol range and had to cross in front of my door. I saw a pale woman with sweat streaking her face. She was hobbling with one hand on the wall for support and the other on her stomach, praying for just a little more time. For lunch, I ripped into an MRE, the Army brown bag lunch, and listened to the ever growing chorus of those who had so far snuck down half my bowl of brightly colored improvised colon explosive devices. I was not sure if the other side of the building was seeing the same activity in the latrines, but the smell reached my door by the end of lunch. Good thing I was stationed with an infantry unit for the first 4 years of my career, so I was accustomed to bad odors. One of my minions did not return from lunch, so I volunteered another to perform a possibly suicidal scouting mission into the male latrine in search of my wayward soul. He was there. He had been since the beginning of lunch. By 1500, I was told that the unit was being locked down and that there was an emergency meeting in the battalion briefing room. I had a suspicion of the reason, but attended as I was ordered to do so. By this time, my bowl of gelatinous howitzer ammunition was one quarter filled. The meeting began slightly off schedule at 1522. The sergeant major walked into the room and looked as if he had just performed a 3-day combat operation without sleep. The battalion XO walked in not long after and looked as if he had been immediately assaulted by a rather insistent horse. I used all of my military bearing to keep from cracking a joke about cavalry officers walking bow-legged. The battalion surgeon walked in and told us that there was a high chance that the unit had come into contact with a strange stomach bug. Roughly half of the battalion was complaining of stomach cramps and explosive diarrhea. It seems to mostly be affecting HCC and C Company, the company that was on the same side of the building as us, also the medics. Until symptoms cleared up, the unit was in lockdown and cleaning mode. I went back to my supply room with the intent to back up the remaining evidence of my involvement, only to find the bowl was missing. My minions were too wrapped up to notice anything, though, so I began to search for the evidence that would probably land me in front of a firing squad. The empty bowl was located in the admin's offices. Someone found it and decided to liberate it from my supply room only for the group that I didn't want to upset. Give me a second, guys. Well, I'm streaming because I'm bored and I'm at work and I have a lot of free time. Okay, where was I? Probably land me in front of a firing squad. The empty bowl was located in the admin offices. Someone found it and decided to liberate it from my supply room for the only group that I didn't want to upset. But they had already consumed the remainder of the biological weapons. As I left with the bowl, I heard a familiar sound of incoming fire from the senior pay clerk's desk, followed shortly after by what sounded like Lamar's breathing. That weekend, the entire building was cleaned from one side to the other. MREs were consumed in the hopes of plugging the torrential flood of liquid terror, and every door and window was opened with fans going over a cup of pine sol in every room. Three-quarters of the enlisted and half of the other officers were hit with the mysterious stomach bug, and the medical supply room was in desperate need of more IV kits. I don't know if my message got across, but it was definitely an entertaining weekend. Oh god. Don't eat sugar-free gummy bears. Someone made a preparation list. Okay, this is a 5-star review titled A Delicious Treat That Should Be Enjoyed Only After Following Preparations Have Been Made by Jimmy Beans on October 17th, 2015. Um, 1. Make sure it's Friday and cancel all weekend plans. For good measure, go ahead and call in for Monday. 2. Call the city and make sure your water bill is paid in full. 3. Visit your local hardware store and purchase a sink attachment for your garden hose as toilet paper will quickly become too painful to bear. Um, 4. Give advance notice to family members, roommates, and neighbors unless you're keen on trying to give birth to a crushed watermelon while convincing your local SWAT team that both the screaming and demonic noises are from you, and a dynamic entry would only bring about more needless suffering. That's fucking brilliant. 5. Redo your restroom in motivational pictures, ones with slogans like "Courage is fear" hanging on 1 minute longer. The only easy day was yesterday, etc. I also advise posting up a suicide prevention hotline number or having a dedicated friend or other support group to walk you through the low times. Oh my god. Lastly, I must strongly urge you to consider why you are thinking of buying this product. Is it a sense of deep self-loathing? A reckless sense of adventure? Are you researching dysentery? Perhaps you are the drill sergeant of some extreme commando unit seeking to break down the enemy's will to fight by airdropping these into their midst. If you are just curious, then let me say, oh fellow human, beware, for this life is dangerous enough. Next time I want a thrill, I'll skydive without a parachute. That way, at least I'll have a chance. This is some serious. Forgive the pun. This is some serious shit. Yes, but it would solve a lot of problems. Okay. It would. It would break every Geneva Convention law known to man. This one is called "At This Point My Stomach Feels Like a War Zone" by Jacob Edwards on June 17th, 2017. Oh, so relatively recently. So it started out as a regular Wednesday D&D session. Oh no. Usually we have Skittles as a snack, but the store owner hates that we do because they get all over the floor, so he said he would bring the snacks. He goes to the back and brings out a 5-pound bag of gummy bears. So I, as a gummy bear lover, go in head first. About an hour into the game, I start feeling unwell, so I ask if I can use their bathroom. He says the bathroom is out of order, sign and everything. At this point, my stomach feels like a war zone. The store owner asks me if I'm okay. Oop, I swear to God, some of these people that live here are morons. Anyway, Zerg, if find me that article, I'll read it for you guys. My stomach feels like a war zone. The owner asks me if I'm okay. My response, with a blood red face, was, "Where's the nearest toilet?" With a straight face, he says, "Down the street at Jack's." So I, with my butt cheeks clenched, waddle out the door, drive to Jack's. It was so bad I had to take off my shirt and pants. Now, a year later, I learned that the bathroom was working perfectly and it was all a prank. That's a fucked up prank. Oh, this one is just titled Death. It's very quick. Brady Sawyer. I read all the reviews and thought it was far-fetched that a bag of gummy bears could do that to someone, but it's true. I ate about 20 of them, and at 4 p.m. yesterday, I got a terrible stomach ache, and at about 4:30. Now it's the next day at 4 p.m. and I still have a stomach ache. I can barely walk. Do not eat these unless you love the feeling of being bloated and feeling like you're going to explode. They do taste good though. Hold on a second. The scanner is right there on the pillar. You came up a little too quick. Like I said, no one needs these gummy bears. Oh no, this one's titled The Boss's Kids. It's 5 stars from Daniel on July 4th, 2014. I know a few people that I'd like to send. I know a few people I'd like to send these gummy bears to. Oh man, let me tell you. So I got my package not for my consumption, but for the pure enjoyment factor of for others to eat. I did have a few, but not very many, maybe like 5 or 10. I handed them out at work, and one of my coworkers had more than most. At about 25% of the bag. The next morning, when she came in, she had the look of pure exhaustion and violation on her face. Somebody had already told her the gummies were what caused it before I had come in that morning. She gave me the look. If you've if you have or are an adult or are in an adult relationship, you know what that means. Needless to say, I denied it like herpes. Later that day, she told me that while she was eating the gummies, the boss's kids who were at the workplace wanted to join in the deliciousness of gummy eating. When the boss saw his kiddos chop God, the grammar is horrible on this. When the boss saw his kiddos chowing down on some gummies, his response was, "Don't give them a sugar high." Her response to the boss was, "I'm not, sir, they're sugar free." The boss's next words were, "Well, then give them all they want." So she did. She gave them, and they killed the remaining three-fourths of the bag. I instantly stopped her. "Are you for real right now?" Then I remembered. Thankfully, the boss flew out that evening on business, so I wasn't sure or not if he put the two together. Thankfully, this was the end of it. Alright. Chocolate pain. Oh, that doesn't sound good. Alright. Like I said, I know a few people that I'd want to give this to. Okay. So Zerg has given me the sugarless gummy bears article from Vice, so I'm going to read that. Thank you very much, Zerg. All right, it's titled "Sugarless Gummy Bears Are Not Safe for Safe for Humans." There's been lots of talk on the internet lately about Haribo sugar-free gummy bears and how they make you shit like a madman. One staffer was skeptical, so we made him eat a bunch and report back to us. Here's what happened. According to these detailed Amazon reviews, just a handful of the bears can cause an immediate evacuation of the gastrointestinal tract. There are 53 pages of reviews on Amazon, each one topping the last with a story of gummy-fueled diarrhea nightmares. Gastric exorcism at 30,000 feet, a reviewer named I Like Cheese wrote. Don't use the bathroom on a Delta flight. That stench is from me 7 years ago. I'm no avid Amazon shopper or reader of online reviews, but I've scanned my share and have never seen anything close to the kind of in-depth reporting that's found on the Haribo sugar-free gummy bear Amazon reviews page. The metaphors are akin to something John Donne would have written after a particularly stinging shit. Gastric exorcism, liquid razor blades. I wasn't buying it. This whole thing seemed like stupid internet hoax, an excuse for people to pen elaborate fictions about their somewhat irregular but ultimately harmless gummy bear induced shits. The reporter in me knew what had to be done. I bought a few pounds of the Day Globe bears at a candy store in Manhattan and found myself in the Vice offices late that Saturday night, shoving handfuls in my mouth, determined to find out the truth. And there are pictures of him just with a handful of gummy bears in his mouth. I camped out on a leather couch in the lobby. Leather seemed easiest to hose down if I didn't make it to the bathroom in time. At least he's being considerate. The bears were still cold from being outside, and the first few were tough on the jaw. Once they warmed up, the texture was everything we've come to expect from the good people at Haribo. The flavor was amazing, too. Lycosine, the sugar substitute that's supposed to be the source of the colonic unrest, tastes amazing. Splenda and other artificial sugars have nothing on lycosine aside from the alleged diarrhea part. 7:25 p.m. One of the Amazon reviews mentioned that they'd only eaten 20 gummies before their bowels exploded, so I figured that would be a safe threshold dose. I took a handful, and the first half hour felt close to that anxious period right after dropping acid, when you're killing time and waiting for it to hit. I snuck a few more bears as I waited. They really are tasty. 8 p.m., a half hour in, I started feeling weird. I hadn't eaten gummy bears since I was 12, and I figured it would have felt the same after eating any fist-sized glob of gelatin. Meredith, the photographer who encouraged Vice to test these gummies in the first place, thanks Meredith, brought over a trash bin. I started spitting out thick red loogies. A few times I felt like yakking up the gummy bears, but I forced myself to keep them inside. If those bears wanted out, they'd have to find another way. Ooh, he sounds like he's testing fate. 8:21. Something felt wrong, very wrong, but the bears were too good to quit. I kept eating. 8:40. Gassy, an adamant voice in the back of my mind kept telling me, slow and steady, push things out too fast and you might let more slip than you want to. 9:02, shooting pains had begun. But after 2 hours of eating the bears, I still hadn't made a mad dash to the bathroom. Maybe my theory was right. Maybe all the Haribo diarrhea emergency stories were exaggerated internet fiction. Another bonsai kitten hoax. How mistaken I was. 9:15. There's a movie called Devil's Due in theaters right now. In its trailer, there's a quick shot of a woman napping on a couch as something starts to force its way up from inside her belly. I felt like this was happening to me. The bears were gnawing at my stomach lining. I started to think this dumb stunt could actually cause serious damage. 9:30. The office's night security guard walked by a few times to check on me and Meredith. By this point, I'd lost my ability to communicate clearly. My sentences came out fractured and punctuated with groans. The guard didn't seem particularly surprised that this was happening. 10:12. A friend of mine asked if he could swing by and check on me. I stood up for the first time in an hour and gravity started to take hold. I just about let loose of everything I had inside of me as I opened the door to let him in the office. 10:26. The beginning of the end. The bears opened my lower pod bay door and a gummy hell sprang forth. I made it to the toilet, just barely. My watery shit looked like a blend of bile and egg flour soup. Oh god, that's disgusting. Oh, that's horrible. With all attempts at modesty destroyed, I allowed Meredith and my buddy to follow me into the bathroom. He shied away, but Meredith came in like a pro, knowing what kind of massacre she was walking into. 10:47. How's it going, boss? 10:47. Exhausted and drained of all liquid, I hobbled home, but the need to shit out all of my water weight hadn't gone away. It took every ounce of my being not to shit my pants on the corner of Manhattan and Norman Avenue in Greenpoint, Brooklyn. My rectum put on a star performance. 11 p.m. I crawled into bed, shaking and dehydrated. At least I got to the bottom of the Haribo mystery. I ate the bears so the world wouldn't have to. I fell asleep with a noble sense of importance, and the faint smell of fruity shit clinging to my clothes. 11:49. I dreamed a gentle dream. A well-groomed older gentleman led me by the hand down a long corridor. The bathroom is right this way, sir, he said. We've kept this one for only our most important guests. He stopped and pushed open the door, revealing the most magnificent and ornate bathroom I had ever seen. He smiled and nodded and quietly shut the door behind me, leaving me alone. And 11:51, I tore myself out of bed and ran towards the toilet, vomiting out of my asshole. Whatever happened in the Vice office was nothing compared to this. I dug my iPhone from its pocket of the pants bunched around my ankles and fired up the voice recorder. There's audio. I don't want to hear the audio because I can't play the audio. I don't have OBS or anything, so I'm not gonna. I don't want to listen to it. At 3:10 a.m. from 11:50 to 3:10. I crawled back into bed after shitting for hours. I was a shell of a man, fingers pruned from dehydration. The wreckage I left in the bathroom was too much for my weak body to deal with. I left it for a roommate to clean up. Oh, you fucking bastard! That's horrible. 6 a.m. My girlfriend woke up to get ready for work. She wandered into the bathroom, took one look inside, and stomped back to her bed. We're never getting our security deposit back. That's good. That's really good. Well, thank you for that, Zerg. I- so, as we all know, it's true. Oh yes, very charming, very charming. Okay. I'll read a few more and then we can move on to something else. Okay, this one is called Chocolate Pain. First off, let me start by saying that I used to pride myself on having a cast iron stomach. Keywords used to. These little monstrosities initially had no effect, and I was mildly disappointed in my purchase. If there is indeed a hell, that's what my entire digestive system went to a few hours after the fact. If I had to describe what happened using a song title, it would have to be Chocolate Rain by Days on Day. Oh, I'm not testing it. Don't worry about that. I'm not eating these gummy bears ever. Some stayed dry. I definitely feel the pain. It felt like World War III had just been declared in my stomach and the amount of gurgling it was doing. Part of me was terrified. I was indeed going to die with my pants around my ankles inside a porta potty. It was so bad I'm fairly certain the cleaners were going to be gagging in the morning when they came through. If you're a sick bastard who just feels like you deserve some kind of punishment, this is for you. You will think about everything bad you have ever done in your life while praying for sweet merciful death to tell you it's over. I wasn't just reunited with the gum from third grade. I was reunited with the coin I ate in kindergarten. Don't let the generic packaging fool you. Um, I want to buy these for some of the people that I don't like the most and just have them, um, just give it to them. All right, this one is called Rainbow Colored Fun. There comes a time in one's life when they ask a simple question. Why? I asked myself that question 1 week ago this very night. Why did I not read the reviews before ordering these gummy seeds of Satan? What started out as nothing more than ordering something to munch on while watching the watching the football games turned into 2 days of intestinal terrorism. You still want them, you don't care about the consequences. That's horrible. Hold on a second. Leave them in the fridge at work for the food thieves to find. There's only 3 other people I work with. It wouldn't do that good. And our refrigerator is actually busted. All right. I sat down on a Sunday afternoon with my bag of gummy bears to watch the Giants game. Kicked up my feet, sat back, and started popping these bad boys 3 or 4 at a time. Everything started okay at first. The Giants had the lead. He's a Giants fan, so he deserves everything. I was enjoying my relaxing Sunday, and that's when the trouble started. Eli Manning fumbled, and I felt the first rumble in my stomach. Nothing dawned on me at the time, but if I could only go back and warn my unsuspecting soul of what was yet to come. It was a close game in the entire second half until that fatal moment. There would be no comeback or Giants victory today. Eli threw an interception that was returned for a game winning touchdown, and I yelled out, "Oh no," for 2 reasons that day. Soon as the defender crossed the goal line for the score, blammo, the dastardly bears of gumminess had conquered my digestive tract and weren't taking any prisoners. The next 3 hours of my life were a blur of mixed emotions crying, moaning, numbness in both of my legs from sitting on the toilet for that long, and also in my heart for what was once a childhood joy, now an adulthood horror. Who would who would have thunk that rainbow-colored gummy bears could manifest itself into such an evil of multiple brown rag dolls left floating in the porcelain bowl, needing to be flushed away in all urgency so as not to leave a reminder of that day. Gummy bears, you are no longer a friend of mine. No, you are not. Could, but only in small doses. Do you guys have anything that you want me to read? I can keep reading these. I hope they're entertaining you. But I mean, is there anything else that you want? Maybe a story or anything like that? All right. Oh, this one is called Devil Gummies. This one's actually rather long, so maybe it'll be pretty good. Devil Gummies, 1 star from Trent Allen on September 16th, 2013. Jeez, it sounds so long ago. These little gummies should be made with little horns on their heads. These bears look so sweet and innocent, yet they have an evil side, which is equivalent to eating 100 X-Lax tablets. To be quite honest, I read the reviews, and after reading about someone else needing a seatbelt, oop, give me a second. No, this I haven't written chapter 2 yet, but I will be this week, so there will be more to come. Okay. To be quite honest, I read the reviews, and after reading about someone else needing a seatbelt because they gave you so much gas, or about the guy that said to eat these and go on a long road trip if you want to break up with your girlfriend, that's that's good. I had to try them. The guy that mentions napalm, I have to say, is exaggerating a little bit. He must have had a few jalapenos or some Mexican food before eating these, because they don't put off any heat at all. They do, however, do everything else the others say they do. I really purchased these bad boys to give a few choice friends and some fellow coworkers. I handed these little guys out like they grew from a tree. I made sure not give them any more than 15. If you give someone a handful of 30 or more, they may eat only 5 or 10 of them and save the rest for later. If you give them 15, they are practically guaranteed to eat all 15. So after handing them out, I sat down at my desk and waited. These little devils got a hold of my coworkers after 45 minutes to an hour and a half. And I have to tell you, I have never had so much fun at work before. There are 5 restrooms in the entire building. There are about 60 people in the building, 1 co-ed restroom, and 2 male, 2 female restrooms. There was a line of people using the restrooms, even after the guys decided that it was okay to use the female restroom for emergency use only. Believe me, this was an emergency. Okay, after I read this review, I'll see if I can find it. My boss decided he couldn't wait in line and took off at 10 for an early lunch, just so he could use a restroom, I think. Let me just say, we have flexible lunch schedules. Although we typically limit them to about an hour, he didn't come back until 2:30, and he was not happy. He asked me what I gave him, and I told him that I had just received the package from Amazon. I showed him the box. I showed him that they were sugar-free gummy bears. I asked him if he liked them. He said he thought he had a bad reaction to them, but I told him I doubted it, since I ate several myself and nothing happened. I hadn't eaten any. I'm so evil. I was in for it though. After he talked to several other people that had the same reaction, they all came into my office at the same time and confronted me about the gummy bear incident. I thought for sure they were going to shove a handful down my throat to see if I had the same reaction, but gladly they didn't. I have to say I was a bit worried. They all came to the same conclusion that the gummies were evil and they needed to be destroyed. They took them from me, even after some pleading, and destroyed them. By destroying them, I mean, of course, they flushed them down the toilet to send them to a horrible place they had just claimed 4 days' worth of bowel movements from each person. So, after going through only about 10% of a 1 pound bag, I have to say it was worth every bit. Needless to say, I have now ordered a 5 pound bag so I can give them to my choice friends, seeing as I wasn't quite able to distribute them after the first incident, and post another fun bit in the 5 pound section. If you are looking to eat these as a treat, take my word for it, just buy the regular sugar gummies. A few cavities won't hurt as bad as these little devils will. If you want to put the hurt on a couple of choice people, by all means, these are the gummies for you. That's messed up. All right, the little black bag. Uh, no. Okay, that's not what I'm looking for. Sorry, I'm just trying to find a place to read it. Oh, geez. I don't know if I can read this all at once, all today. This is, I mean, that's a lot. I just, yeah, I mean, it is a short story. It's just, it's a very long short story, and it would probably take um, uh, maybe a couple hours to read. Um, I mean, I can keep it in mind for for something else. Let's um, let's see here. How about you guys want me to read a creepy story? I can read a creepy story. What do you guys think? Do you want to be creeped out in these early morning hours? All right, I'll read a. You don't want to be creeped out. This one should. I don't think this one's too. No, this one's a long one. God damn. All right, not that one. This one doesn't look too long. Okay. All right. I'll read a creepy story, and then I'll find something else to read. Um, Eloise, if you want to find something for me to read, I can read it for you. If you want to find something funny to read or something like that. Okay, so this one is called The Girl in the Dark. I'll never forget the first time I saw the girl. The, okay, before I start, the one about the Ouija board, it wasn't necessarily creepy. I mean, when you got to the end and you thought about it, you're like, oh, okay, that's kind of thinking about it is creepy. But it had there was a lot of there was a lot of humor in that, and I think that's what kind of, if it would have went straight for it, it would have been it probably would have been bad. How's it going, Cass? Oh, Cass, you're just in time. I'm going to read a creepy story. You missed out on some of the comedy reviews there. Okay, so The Girl in the Dark. I'll never forget the first time I saw the girl. It was mid-October, and it was unusually cold for the area. The air was biting at my feet as I stood outside barefoot. The smell of smoke filled the air. I put out my cigarette, prepared to walk back inside. I could sense that there was something lingering in the corner of my eye. But when I looked, there was nothing to be seen. I felt as though someone or something was watching me. I thought I must be tired from the long day of work and chalked it up to that. I turned to open the front door, determined to head upstairs and get some much needed rest. Then a chill cascaded through my spine and I knew something was wrong. I looked back to the spot I thought I saw something before. I couldn't see anything, but I could feel a presence. My body began to shake, and I decided to take a few tender steps in the direction where it came. As I approached the blackness, the form of a young child started to become clear. I couldn't see its face, only a wicked smile of rotten yellow teeth. A dark black jacket cloaked the figure, long, straight black hair making its way from the top of its head down to its waistline. I knew immediately it wasn't friendly, whatever it may be. The child's left arm slowly raised from its side and drew its index finger to point at me. In that instant, I was frozen still, despite my best efforts to turn and run inside. My feet wouldn't budge. My life felt as though it was being drained from me, and I knew I was trapped. The smile grew larger, and the child began to move toward me. The blackness of its soul consumed me, and I knew nothing but despair. My mind was clouded with visions of the most horrendous scenes I could have ever witnessed. Dozens of children being tortured, beaten, and left to die in a pitch black room, only a single light swaying back and forth overhead. They were huddled against the wall, their backs turned to the light, their arms covering their heads. Some lay lifeless on the ground, others trembled vigorously, crying and begging for it to come to an end. An ogre of a man stood over them, watching them as he twisted a rusted chain in his gloved hands. He clenched his teeth as he pulled back his arm to strike the girl in front of the heap. Just as the chain was about to strike her, I felt the scene fade away and was instantly back in my front yard, staring into the shadows. I jumped back in fear of what was about to happen to me, but I could no longer see the child where it once stood. All common sense and logic told me to flee, but something drew me to stay for a little longer. Could it have been the same girl from the vision? It looked to be around it. I looked around to see if she might still be nearby, my feet still barely able to move. I no longer felt her presence, and I didn't see her around me. As quickly as my body would allow, I ran inside and locked the door. I couldn't sleep that night. I replayed everything that had just happened in my mind, trying desperately to make sense of it all. Was she trying to show me what happened to her? But then why would she be smiling? A pressure began to build in my eyes, causing me a severe headache. I turned on every single light, brought in every flashlight. I even lit a few candles that I had. There would be no more shadows near me this night. Sitting in bed with my legs pulled up tight to my chest, I had the feeling that this was only the beginning of something terrible. The sounds of chirping birds outside my window at the break of day brought me back to reality. The incessant sing-song communication brought me some respite from the terrors of the night. I gingerly placed one foot on the carpeted flooring of the bedroom. Once I knew it was okay, I slowly brought the other down and stood for what felt like the first time in weeks. That was easily the longest night I had ever known. The clock read 6:07. I was supposed to be at work at 9, but there was no way I was going to be making it in today. I briefly considered going for the comfort of having people nearby, but I knew that the way I looked would only raise questions and concerns. And I needed answers. This feeling was nagging at me, forcing me to want to understand. I decided I had to do some research, something that could shed some light on this. I ran to my computer and typed in my address, and I heard the places being haunted before. Perhaps some spirit lingered to carry out unfinished business, or a graveyard that once stood here had been sullied. I wanted to know anything. Dead end. Before this home was here, there was nothing but acres of wooded area. I scoured the internet, looking up articles about nearby hospitals, psych wards, orphanages. I even looked through the famous murderers and criminals from the area. Nothing. All my attempts to cure my relentless obsession with finding out what was going on had failed. A chime came from the clock sitting at the desk behind me. I looked back timidly, only to see my fears confirmed. All this time I had been sitting there, poring over facts and figures. I had let time slip away from me. It chimed again, bringing my eyes to focus in on it. 8 o'clock. The dark had overtaken the day. Everything I knew in that moment was fear. The chair swiveled as I bolted upright, determined to run back to my illuminated fortress. But it was then I felt the chill I had known the night before. My spine locked in place, my legs trembling so hard I could barely stand, cold sweat beginning to drip from every part of my body. The child had returned. I could feel its wicked eyes locked onto me. "What do you want from me?" I managed to say, my voice barely above a whisper, each syllable shakier than the last. I turned to face her, determined to get the answer my mind needed so intensely. Behind me only shadows, but I knew she was near. I could feel that she was coming. "Why have you come here? Why me?" I tried again. There was only silence in return. I stepped out into the hallway against my better judgment. I had to find her. Every thought I had overcame my body's overwhelming desire to turn tail and run. Curiosity overcame common sense as I stepped down the hall, looking in every direction for some sign of her, and then I was frozen again. She appeared from the darkness, her finger pointed at my chest. This time there was no smile. Her other arm reached up to her face. She pulled the hair away, revealing her scarred and shriveled face. Tendrils of shadow made their way from her empty sockets and into my mind. What I experienced was the most intense pain I had ever known. It was as though the tendrils were wrapped around my brain like a vice. They pulled and twisted, squeezed and wrenched. Each movement hurt worse than the last. It felt as though it went on for hours. Then it stopped, and as her face turned towards mine, her hand releasing her hair to cover her face once more. "You never should have tried to find me," a whisper sounded in my mind. Her mouth hadn't moved, but I knew I could hear her speaking. She withdrew her finger into her hand and slowly brought it back to her side. I collapsed immediately. I was free from her power, but the pain was still so intense I could hardly move. "I have no choice but to bring you to him," she said softly as the smile returned to her face. I looked up to see her, but she was gone, her words lingering in the air, my lungs gasping for breath. My head felt as though it might explode, and my legs couldn't move. As quickly as I could, I began to crawl back to my room, each pull of my arms dragging my broken body closer to the light I was certain could save me. Each attempt to crawl became more difficult, my labored breath slowing me down until I was only able to move a few inches at a time. At last I reached my bedroom. I had to use every bit of my remaining energy to prop myself against the door and to turn the knob. I fell in face first, landing directly on my chin. In one last desperate attempt, I pulled my legs up and kicked the door shut behind me. I heard the decisive snap before my head collapsed back onto the carpet and my mind faded to black. The girl appeared to me in my dreams that night, but every time I tried to see her, she would move just out of my sight, lingering in the corner of my vision. "You should stop trying to see me. You shouldn't be trying to see me. It will make him angrier," she would whisper. She repeated the same thing over and over, but I couldn't help but try to focus on her. Even through the fear, I was acting on my ludicrous impulse to understand who or what she was. I woke up with my face covered in dried blood, my tongue pulsing with pain. I must have bit into it when I fell into the room. I was severely fatigued, probably dehydrated. Soreness rang through my body. The lights felt as though they were piercing through me as my eyes struggled to adjust. I knew that I needed someone to help, but I had no idea where to go. The only thing that made sense to me in that moment was to go to the police and report to them what had happened. Maybe they could refer me to someone who could help with this sort of thing. I picked myself up off the ground and threw on some clothes to make sure I was covered enough to be seen in public. My eyes could barely focus and my limbs could barely move, but somehow I managed to get myself into the car. I couldn't tell you how I got there. I can't even remember what streets I took or how fast I was going. Once I arrived, I rushed in to tell whoever would listen what happened, what the girl said to me, and how it would cease to exist if I ever saw the dark again. It turned out to be a huge mistake. The police just stared at me as I explained myself. They forced me into a tiny, dank cell until the ambulance arrived to take me to the hospital. I was strapped to a hospital bed, my meals being spoon fed to me like I was a newborn child. The restraints gnawed at my ankles and wrists, leaving behind raw skin and painful memories. I tried several times, in different ways, to explain myself to make them see I wasn't crazy. To no avail. Paranoid schizophrenia, delusional, a danger to myself and others. They threw around this medical terminology and jargon to try and convince me the only threat to my life was me. I knew the staff was snickering at me as they walked by. Their egos wouldn't allow them to believe in something so terrible. I managed to fall asleep after hours of writhing uncomfortably in the bed, but it was short lived. I was jarred awake when I realized they had turned the lights off in the room. The chill had returned to me like an unwanted disease. That's when I heard her whisper again. He's coming for you now. The voice cut through my thoughts as I looked through the window into the hall. There was her evil, yellow smile staring back at me. What I heard next terrified me more than anything I've ever known. Huge, lumbering steps began to resonate down the hallway of the hospital wing. I couldn't see anything but darkness, but I knew I was alone. The ground shook with each large, calculated step, every inch of my body trembling, the involuntary urination soaking my legs and bed sheets. I screamed at the top of my lungs, begging for help. My throat closed and I could no longer speak. I was frozen once more. The girl had taken control of me. The immense footsteps making their way closer, the sound growing louder and louder. For a moment I saw a glimpse of the large, rusty chain wrapped around two oversized gloved hands. What's wrong? What's going on? The lights flickered on, blinding me momentarily as my eyes adjusted to the sudden, unexpected brightness. Two young nurses rushed to my bedside, checking to see what had happened. They're here, I said hoarsely. They've come to take me. They both looked around quickly before glancing at one another. There's no one here but you. The girls who spoke sounded irritated. Go back to sleep. I tried to tell them what happened, but they seemed to have no interest in what I had to say. They scoffed and walked out of the room, turning the light off as they left. I screamed as loudly as I could until they turned it back on. Probably made me seem even crazier, but I knew at that point they weren't about to believe me anyways. Even at the faintest hint of shadow, I can still see her, smiling, waiting for me to be surrounded by the darkness so she can take me once and for all. I refuse to succumb to their evil, no matter the cost. Those horrid beings lie in wait for their opportunity to take me from this world. All I see now is the bright lights reflecting the white of my comforting surroundings. The padded cells of my new sanctuary protect me from the terrors that they seek to impart on me. Never again will I allow myself to be covered in shadows. The end. I don't know. I think there was a lot of build up in that one, not enough follow through. What do you guys think? Yes, flat. I mean, it was the. That's what I'm saying. The build up was good. It's just, I mean, it kind of fell flat, like really flat. Let's see. Let's see. How long is this one? 16 minutes. It says. All right. This one is called Do I Have Something for You? What, climate? I don't know about. I mean, I don't know enough about climate change to know if that's a bad thing or not. I mean, I don't care if you're a climate change denier. I do know that for where I live, it's getting hot. It's getting hotter at different times of the month than what I was used to. All right, this one's called Do I Have Something for You? Um, it's a little bit longer than the other one, but I'm sure we can get through it. What are you doing right now? Not 5 minutes ago, not 5 seconds ago. Right now. What are you doing right now? Let me take a shot in the dark here. Are you just slumped over your unmade bed, endlessly scrolling through the endless internet? You haven't even moved in the past few hours, have you? Jesus, man, it's 3 in the morning and you're sitting here still scrolling down page by page. But what exactly are you searching for? Is this I don't like this one already. I'm gonna find something else. This is boring. Um, Chapel. Don't even know how to say that one. All right, what about this one? Oh, nope, that one is very, very long. Green eyes. Even longer. Okay. All right. You have something in your front pocket for me? Oh my. All right, this one is called Just Wait. Um, all right. It was a very hot Floridian day in August, almost unbearably hot. That was the day when my family and I bought a new house. I wanted nothing more than to go back to New Jersey. My friends, my family, my school, and my life were all up there. Very long and even longer are the names of some movie characters. Never mind the fact that it had a much nicer temperature. No matter how much I screamed, kicked, or pouted, there was no going back to the place I once loved. I understand that it was all because my dad needed to find a new job where the working conditions weren't cruel, but man, why here? Why in this isolated, muggy, swampy piece of junk place? Of course, their answer was always, Daddy was able to find a really good job down here. I know you may not like it now, but it is for the best, but it is best for the family. My response was always, okay. We didn't have time to bring all of our stuff from the old house down here, so we had to load up our one family station wagon to the brim. People driving by must have thought we broke the two back springs because of how low it was. Talk about a painful ride. We only stopped once. We had no room to move, and I didn't even want to go into the new house. I didn't understand why my dad's boss was so insistent that we move down there immediately. Maybe he had to fill a really important job or something. After an eternity, we had finally arrived to this treacherous house. I was the last to enter through the door, but the first to skim the whole place. Every room was small. The living room was small. My parents' room was small. My room was small. The bathroom was small, and so was the kitchen. The only thing big about this place was the land it sat on. All 12 acres of it was ours. We really didn't need all 12, but I should probably start looking at the bright side. After a few hours, we had gotten everything we could fit into the car into that house. No, we had not unpacked everything just yet. That would be a tomorrow project. I was starting to feel a little better about moving here, but not 100%. Whatever, I'm sure everything will be fine. 3 weeks went by and everything was set up in the house. The town that my father was working in turned out to have a few stores, which is where we purchased the remaining things we still needed. I will say, with everything put together, this house was starting to turn into a home. I would never say this out loud, but I'm beginning to like it here. Later that night, my parents and I had turned on the TV. I was slightly surprised that we got reception out here, even if it was mediocre. During one of the commercials, there was a loud bang upstairs. It sounded like one of the paintings I had recently hung up. I told my parents that I got it, and I ran upstairs to examine the damage. As I suspected, the painting had fallen. I picked it up and put it back on the wall. I thought it was strange that it fell, since it looked sturdy on that wall, but strange things do happen. When I walked back downstairs, I heard a crack. It didn't sound like it came from where my foot hit the floor, but I thought nothing of it and continued. My parents asked what was it, and I told them it was a painting I hung up as I suspected. My mother nodded, and my father turned back the TV back on. It got late quicker than I had expected. As the hours grew, I grew more and more tired. My parents were already sound asleep, and I was the lone survivor watching TV. I finally gave up and went to bed. All night long, I kept hearing strange noises. Noises you wouldn't expect to hear. I heard what I thought sounded like footsteps moving all over the house. I even thought I heard the faintest knock on my door. I thought nothing of it and convinced myself I was just hearing things. I know I was tired, but it did sound very real. Later the next morning, I was headed downstairs from my bedroom. That damn painting was on the floor again. I was shocked neither of my parents or I had heard it and picked it up last night. My parents are very heavy sleepers, but we heard it all the way downstairs with the TV on. These strange occurrences were starting to bother me. It's only been a day and they're starting to bother you? Get over it. At exactly 9 o'clock at night, my dad got a call on his cell phone. When he hung up, he had a confused look plastered on his face. He said, I just got a call from my boss. Apparently, tomorrow morning I have to go into an urgent meeting at 7 a.m. He gave me very little information, but what I know is that it's far away, little over an hour. My mom asked, well, did he tell you anything else? He replied with, no, he did not. My mom had a surprised look on her face, which quickly dissolved to a happy one. You know, we could probably have a little fun while we're up there. Get a hotel, grab some dinner, roam around, and maybe a little more, she said. My dad's face also turned into a happy one. He replied with, that's actually a good idea. I think we'll do that. He immediately went on his computer to reserve a hotel. While all of this was going on, I wasn't exactly certain I wanted to be watching the house. There was something strange about it. Those weird things happening mixed with a feeling of being watched didn't sit well in my stomach. I'd given my parents a hard time for the move, and I felt as if they would be in better spirits if they had got some time away. I covered my emotions with a smile and said, that's a great idea. I can watch the house while you guys are doing your thing. My dad said, well, since you asked, and laughed. Way too early the next morning, I got to wish my parents good luck on their travels and to assure them that I was responsible enough to watch the house all by my lonesome. They both gave me a hug. They also reminded me of their cell phone numbers, and I told them when they would be told me when they would be coming back. Around 9 a.m. the next morning, I wished them goodbye. They did the same, and that was that. Since I was still weighted with tiredness, I immediately went back to bed. When walking upstairs to my room, guess what wasn't on the wall? That painting. That painting, more specifically, portrait of my parents and I, was on the floor once again. How could that be? I didn't hear anything, and it was definitely on the wall when I got up. Man, this place is weird. After hanging it up again, I continued to my room, shut the door, and jumped straight in my bed. God was I glad to be back in the comfort of my own bed. I laid down and shut my eyes. Why can't I sleep? I am tired, and I felt like I could have fallen asleep any second, but something was keeping me up. My own mind was not allowing me to go back to bed. This this was strange since I don't have any sleep disorders. 10, 15, 20 minutes later, I still lay there with my eyes shut, but my brain zooming with thoughts. I was not even sure what those thoughts were about because of how fast they went by. My efforts were fruitless, and eventually I got up. After exiting the room, to my relief, the painting was still on the wall. The wall that it was intended for. I went downstairs and straight to the kitchen, for my stomach was asking for food. I opened the refrigerator to find less food than I had expected. There hasn't been one time where the refrigerator wasn't filled with a plethora of food, and my parents went to the grocery store recently. All of these things really started to irk me. So I grabbed a quick bite to eat and headed outside to explore the land we now owned. Hopefully, this would help me keep my mind off of those things. Stepping outside felt great. It wasn't brutally hot out. In fact, it was actually quite nice. I was out in our plot of woods for quite some time, maybe an hour and a half. Every minute was worth it, though. I found some excellent climbing trees, and that would give great views. Cool caves with spiders in them, but I also found a fort. This fort was pretty cool, but there was one thing that seriously creeped me out about it. It had new groceries in it, unexpired. Those groceries came from the store my parents got theirs from, and I remember seeing a few of those items in my own refrigerator. What the hell? As a sense of terror filled my head, and I should have listened to it. I should have immediately found a way to contact authorities or get help, but I didn't. For some reason, I ignored it, maybe even forgot about it. Why? I couldn't tell you this day. After seeing that, I decided it was enough outdoor time and I went back inside. When I arrived, I was met with the TV turned on, the volume 100%. I rushed into the TV's plug and unplugged it. Ouch, that killed my ears. Almost the second after unplugging it, I heard something fall from upstairs. I knew exactly what that was, the painting. I somewhat wearily walked upstairs to see, and sure enough, that was what it was. I hung it back up, and to my dismay, the TV downstairs turned on again, full volume. What the fuck is going on? This is really creeping me out. Since I was paranoid of someone being in the house right now, I went to my room to get my baseball bat. I walked downstairs, making sure I was inaudible. I looked around everywhere and listened, but I didn't see or hear a thing. These occurrences were really hard to explain, but I figured I was being a bit ridiculous thinking someone was inside the house. When I reached the bottom of the stairs, I headed to the TV. I unplugged it. After I unplugged it, I didn't hear anything upstairs. I didn't hear anything fall upstairs fall, even after 5 or so minutes. What a relief, I said aloud. Shortly after saying that, I realized I shouldn't have. There was this incredibly creepy laugh coming from the basement. It was the most terrifying thing I had ever heard in my life. It was higher pitched but not adolescent. It sounded somewhat like a clown playing a joke, but it also sounded demonic. I don't know I don't know why, but I thought I had to be brave. I slowly walked towards the basement door with my baseball bat in hand. I could still hear it, faintly. When I opened the door, the laughing ceased. I screamed at the top of my lungs, "I've got a baseball bat and I'm gonna kick your fucking ass." So brave. I stormed down the stairs, worried I may break them. When I reached the bottom, it was blacker than black. Is it me, or does this sound like it's been written by someone who's 13 and was told that they're a really good author? I could not see anything other than the rays of light entering from the open door upstairs. I looked around as best I could, ready to swing that bat in a millisecond. There was nothing that looked out of the ordinary until I heard something. This something was coming from the ground, and it sounded like water. The sound was produced by me stepping right into it. I looked at the floor and could not believe what I saw. It was blood. I lost all of my courage when I saw that mess of blood on the floor. I was going to say edgy, very, very edgy. You know, all of a sudden, I hear that same terrifying laugh, but on the stairs I recently descended. When I looked, I saw nothing but a black shadow, and then I barely saw anything. This thing had closed the door. I had immediately ran to the door, but when I heard the click of the lock, I stopped. I I'm thinking Pennywise too. Yes, they all float. Realistic blood, I guess. I don't know. Like it it's like trying to read like Amityville Horror or like The Ring or something when things are happening and people are like, oh, it's just nothing, and it's just very bad. I mean, I'm gonna finish, but we're almost done. I was locked in the basement. How could I have been so stupid? Well, you did run down there. Why did I even go down there? I looked under the door to see a pair of what looked to be running shoes just waiting for me to open that door. It's locked. Though I had been very stupid during this whole thing, I wasn't going to seal my fate because of more stupidity. I slowly, quietly, and carefully walked down those steps to the ground. Something caught my eye, so I walked over to examine what it was. It was a bloodied, rusty knife. I felt as if I could have barfed. I haven't heard barf in a while. But luckily, I was able to keep it down. This scared me so much I ran around the room, blindly swinging at anything down there. I hit the walls, some pipes, the washing machine, and a few other things. None of these things I hit were living, which allowed me to relax slightly more. And probably should have used some Mountain Dew and Doritos as well, or Cheetos. An hour or maybe two, maybe more passed by. There was no way I could stay down here the whole time. That guy is going to just lock me in this basement and run away. He has far worse intentions. He is looking to kill. True, he might steal stuff, but he wouldn't purposely creep my family, more specifically me, out just so he could steal a few things. Plus, with that ever so creepy laugh, no way he was just going to steal. That whole paragraph is just. Maybe I should do a review of this. Jesus. I had to do something. My parents could be brutally murdered up there while I listened. There were no openings down here to escape through. I thought that maybe if I took that knife, I could dig my way through the cement wall to get outside, but I quickly realized that would not work. No fucking shit. A rusty bloody knife against the cement wall. The only option was of escape was to go through the door where that person was standing. Slowly, I walked up the steps. I peered under the doorway from as far back as possible. I saw those same pair of running sneakers I saw earlier. Almost no difference. I, I was torn about what to do, but I had to do something. Maybe if I was able to knock him over by opening the door, I would have an upper hand on him. I could possibly hit him with my bat. That was the best idea I had. Failure could mean death, though. There was no room for error. I'm making a call right now. When they come back, I don't know. I'm making a call right now. The person that he's afraid of is himself. We haven't been told if the person who is telling the story is a boy or a girl. I'm assuming it's a boy, and I'm assuming that the boy is seeing himself. That's the twist. I'm saying that's the twist. Uh, Give me just a second. All right. I grabbed my bat and headed back up those stairs as quiet as I could be. As I expected, he was still there, waiting for his next victim. Your parents aren't coming home for another day. I mean, come on. When I was close enough to hear his heavy breathing, I kicked that door so hard I nearly fell back down those steps. He was pushed he was pushed far back. I shut the door when I saw him. I nearly dropped my bat. He was incredibly tall, at least 6'6". His skin looked as if he had been bleached. He had the darkest hair I'd ever seen, and a huge smile revealing his blood-stained teeth. Out came that same horrifying laugh. I screamed so loud I shook the whole house. My bat was ready to hit this creep, and when I did, it sent him flying back about 4 feet against the wall. He was on the ground, blood pouring from his head, and clearly dead. I would love to be sponsored by Audible, but I think you need a certain amount of subscribers before they give you a sponsorship. Fear completely overcame me, so much so that I dropped the bat. It was his father. It's either him or it's his father, one of the two. I went straight to the floor and wept my eyes out. I couldn't think straight. My mind was a tornado. I was dizzy. I felt sick to my stomach, so much so that I vomited everywhere. At least you didn't barf. My job wasn't over yet. I still had to call the police. I walked as fast as I could with my tear-stained face to the phone. I dialed 911 and waited to hear a voice. It was taking longer than it should have until finally I heard a voice say, 911, what's your emergency? I tried my best to hold back my emotions and speak clearly. I said, someone entered my house and they were trying to kill me. Please hurry. I couldn't speak anymore. The tears came down like a waterfall. Eventually, when I stopped, I went back to the phone and tried to speak again. When I picked up the phone, I felt breathing behind me. Well, now, you are calling the cops on me? He laughed and then said, they won't save you. This is written like a bad anime. Like, oh my god. My mouth dropped and my eyes were wide. I turned around to see the guy about 3 inches from my face giving me his horrible smile. I ran straight for the door. He grabbed me by the neck and started to choke me. I was eventually able to conjure up enough energy to punch him in the face. His grip had stopped and he was taken aback. I don't think you actually know what taken aback means when you wrote this, but it's fine. I ran straight for the door, and right before I shut it, he was coming after me with a kitchen knife. I wasn't athletic, but I must have ran as fast as Usain Bolt away from that house. I looked back once to see him peering through the window, knife in his right hand. The phone I called the police on in the other, and that same smile he had plastered on his face. I could not hear him, but I could tell he was laughing again with that terrible laugh. I booked it to the woods and went deep enough so he couldn't see me. Yes, this is written very terribly. Like very, very, very terribly. I finally found a tree which I hid behind. You went into the woods and you found a tree. You know, you could have found the tree in the first few that you fucking came in contact with, but you had to go deep into the woods to find a tree. I'll finish. It took me a moment to catch my breath and gather my thoughts. When I had done so, hold on. It took me a moment to catch my breath and gather my thoughts. When I had done so, I went closer to the house, making sure he was still in there. What? So you ran into the woods that are far away, from, acres away from your house, and now suddenly. Okay. At this point, I had a pretty good distance between me and that guy. But you're able to see into the house. But when I was looking at the window he watched me through, he had disappeared. No shit, he's not just gonna stand. He's not just gonna stand in the window waiting for you to poke your head out of the woods. What should I do? This guy was probably a runner, considering his stature and his 6'6" doesn't make you a runner. I would say a basketball player, but he has the downs. And he saw where I went into those woods. I went what felt like 300 meters deep into those woods and headed in. Okay, so you went 300 meters deep into the woods to find a tree to hide behind, but still enough to see your house. What? Went deep, 300 meters deep in the woods and headed in a different direction to throw him off. Maybe it would be best if I was on off the ground where he wouldn't think to find me. I walked for what I would say 7 minutes and found a perfect climbing tree. I climbed to the very top, being careful to remain quiet and not fall. Luckily, this was a very tall tree, and when I reached the top, I could see a chunk of landscape. I could see where I just was, and my house. When I looked closely, I noticed two sets of footprints leading from my house to the area I was originally was in the woods. One set was mine, so the others must have been his. He was looking for me. You couldn't have fucking seen that from a very tall tree. It, I'm not a professional writer, okay? I'm not. Yes, I have a published book, but my published book, which is absolute shit, by the way, is 100 times better than this garbage. And oh my god, I don't, how much more of this do I have? Oh, this is going to be a long thing, isn't it? All right, I'm going to try and power through this. I wasn't confident in my decision to climb this tree. I was. I wasn't confident in my decision to climb. If I over exaggerate some of these things, it's so I can entertain myself. What if he had found me? I wouldn't. I would be done with, done for, done for. The, you would be done for. I just closed my eyes and prayed to God that I would make it through this whole thing alive. Several minutes went by and I started to hear rustling. You know, it's probably the animals in the woods that you're in. I was, if you're, it was getting closer. There was no option from here on out other than to stay in the tree. I looked down and I saw that man. He was looking around with the biggest kitchen knife he could have found in his hand. God, I hope this guy didn't look up the tree. He continued walking steadily, looking around every nook and cranny until he stopped right at the bottom of the tree I had climbed. If I edited while I was reading, we'd still be at the beginning of this garbage. He was looking around for what felt like an hour just from that position. I was keeping as quiet as humanly possible. The man looked to his left, to his right, behind him, and repeated, "For an hour." Okay. Finally, he continued on his way, walking away from the tree. Okay, you didn't have to add walking away from the tree. It's implied with finally he continued on his way. Hold on. What a relief. And oh, I hate that. It's what period a period relief period. I was so happy he didn't see me, but still vigilant to make sure he didn't come back. You are at the top of a very tall tree in the middle of the woods. What can you see? Nothing. For a few more minutes passed by until I saw someone walking from the woods back to my house. Out of the blue, I heard sirens roaring down the street. It was the police. 3 of their cruisers raced into my driveway. Almost simultaneously, 8 police officers leapt out of their cars yelling, "Get down, drop your weapon," with guns in their hands, all aimed at him. The man who walked out of the woods, the smiley, creepy, smile, clearly the smiley faced creep, actually did what was told and went to the ground. Yes, Moondoggy, that's exactly what it sounds like. A few officers rushed over with handcuffs, while others had their guns aimed on his head. When the 2 officers who were bringing him to the car picked him up, the guy started to fight back. The officers tased him, and that put an end to that. I was so thankful that this horrible nightmare was over. When they put the man in the car, a different set of officers with flashlights came calling my name and looking for me. I got down that tree so fast I basically fell. My legs and arms pumped, and I ran straight towards one of them. With the remaining air I had left, I yelled, "I'm here, it's me, Joseph." "Ah, see, told you it was a boy." The officers all ran towards me. They said, "Oh, thank God you survived. Are you hurt?" They wouldn't have said that, but okay. I told them that I wasn't, and I also thanked them for catching him. They replied with, "That's good, and you are welcome. We are just doing our jobs." We're just doing our job. They brought me to one of their cars so I would have some time to calm myself down. It worked. It worked was pointless. Not long after they put me in, I saw my parents' car race down the road and straight across the lawn. They were repeating, "Where's my son?" from inside the car. The police officers brought them straight to me, and both of them gave me the biggest hug I'd ever received. They told me how sorry they were and how they would never make me babysit the house again. When we were all able to calm down and we got out of the car and headed back inside, we were met with police officers cleaning up my house. I thought that was very kind of them. Yes, very. I later heard an engine roar to life. I looked outside to see the cruiser with the man in the back. He was staring at me with the same face he always had. I could not hear what he was saying, but he mouthed something along the lines of "just wait," and then giggled uncontrollably. This creeped me out, but I knew I was safe from that guy and had nothing to worry about. The next day, we saw the man on TV. Post light socket epiphany. Man, it was a mugshot of him. My parents were seriously creeped out by his height, skin, and evil smile. The news anchor said police were able to arrest this man last night and charge him with several things. Several things! He got charged with several things, but most importantly, murder. According to the police, he had murdered a couple while they were sleeping a few weeks ago and had attempted to kill another family last night. When interrogated for 5 hours straight, he simply giggled the whole time, giving no information. All the while, all with a smile on his face. This man had been sentenced to death by lethal injection. And my mother turned off the TV. It's remarkable that the media had all of that fucking information. From the interrogation and whatnot, since the investigation was still going on. We all. Oh, he was sentenced to death by lethal injection in a day. The courts work fucking fast in the universe that this story takes place. Jesus Christ. We all looked at each other and said nothing, but everyone knew what the other was thinking. A few years passed and everything was back to normal. No more weird noises. The house was cleaned up. The whole family was happy. And I finally liked the house. We tried our best to push the incident aside, but made sure it didn't happen again. Almost immediately after the incident, my dad installed cameras, both inside and outside the house, which were being monitored 24/7. It seemed as if my parents had completely forgotten about what happened because we agreed to never talk about it, but I, for one, never got over it. The butler always did it. There was many questions that were left unanswered that I had wanted to solve. Like what? How fast you climbed up a tree, or maybe how you were able to see your house from 300 meters inside a fucking forest? A few of them I did, but a few I still don't know to this day. I now know where all of the blood came from. It came from the couple he murdered. He murdered them with that bloody knife, and he was also a cannibal, being the cause of his bloodied teeth. I know why there was that hut of his back with our food in the woods, too. He was obviously stealing it with some, and we somehow didn't notice. Are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? That's someone doesn't move into a house with blood still. Must have been the most amazing realtor in the world. No, don't worry about going in the basement. There's nothing in there. I mean, just the washing machine and all of that, and you don't need to go down there. Oh, that pool of blood? No, that's just a feature. What? I know now why all of those strange noises and things were happening. What I don't know is why he didn't just kill me. Like you could actually form sentences. He could have just easily walked up behind me and stabbed me rather than making an effort to lock me in the basement and tried to freak me out. Also, why was there a pile of blood on the floor? A pile of blood. I don't know how he could have transferred so much blood. I had a few more unanswered questions, but there was one more I had to answer indefinitely. What was it that he had said to me in the police cruiser? What did it mean? I'm pretty confident that he said, just wait. But what does that mean? I've been here 3 years now and nothing. Whatever. He's just a creep. Yes, a pile of blood. A pile of liquid. Yes, a pile. So he's been stressing over this for 3 years and then just says, whatever, he's just a creep. I turned on the TV in my room and was greeted with breaking news. The man has escaped local prison today and is loose. He has very pale skin, dark hair, and 6'6" in height. Here is his mugshot from when he was in prison. Be on the lookout for this man. I rubbed my eyes once, twice, a third, fourth, sixth time, etc. I still saw the man who had tried to kill me and my family. No, he didn't try and kill you. He locked you in the basement. You tried to kill him by swinging the baseball bat at him. Believe it or not, yes, he got it for breaking and entering, but believe it or not, you assaulted him. His mugshot was the exact same one I saw a few years ago, with that terrible smile. He is loose. He could kill again. He would just come back to this very spot. Now is when I finally understood what just wait meant. This, this, and it has a 6.6 out of 10 rating. 6.6 out of 10. You know what? I'm giving it a fucking 1 because it was goddamn horrible. Oh my god. I don't understand. How do you is there a way to is there comments on this stupid thing? There's no comments. Are there? There are 23 comments. What are they? This is horrible. I don't see the comments. Where are the comments? It won't let me go to the comments, probably because they're all fucking fake. All right. The Snapchat killer. How long is this one? No, this one needs on. That might be the number of reviews. No, it had 100. It had like 106 votes. I was 107. Is there a sequel to the Masterpiece? I hope to God not. Okay. All right. I'm going to try something different. Okay. I'm going to give you guys a choice. How many people are in watching right now? 11. Okay. I'm going to give you guys a choice. I can keep reading creepy stories, or I can do a live commentary reaction to an article. So put 1 in chat to keep reading creepy stories, or put 2 if you want me to do a live, basically a live episode of Help for the Guildless. So, okay. All right, the twos have it. How long is this? This isn't very long. Okay. All right, so this is an older article. I wasn't sure if I was going to do an episode on it or not, but it was about the Subnautica uh, developer that got fired for conservative views. So no, I'm not going to do that. Hold on, hold on, hold on. I know what I'm going to do. Oh, why is that still there? No. Um, news. Um, uh, all right. Oh, jeez. All right. Give me a second, and I will find an article to do one of these things on. Oh, this looks good. All right. This looks good. I had to go searching for it. All right. Why discrimination against men is nowhere near as bad as sexism. From everyday feminism. This should be fun. What is sexism? This might seem like a pretty basic question to ask in an article on a feminist site, but I've recently noticed that very few people actually understand what sexism is. The cancer has begun, yes. It's incredibly important that we know what sexism is. You guys wanted me to do a live reaction because that's our first step to recognizing and challenging it whenever we can. Now, remember, folks, according to Queen Anita, everything is racist, everything is sexist, everything is homophobic, and you have to point it all out. So you don't necessarily need to know what sexism is, you just have to say the word. Often I see people conflating sexism with gender based prejudice. I'm not going to look up the definition of sexism because they actually state it here and they kind of contradict themselves, but we'll go from there. Although the two are related, they are not entirely the same thing. It's totally understandable why many people conflate the two. The mainstream media does it, the education system often does it, even dictionaries do it. I am reading it in a man's voice. I'm sorry, I can't do it any other way. The Oxford. I know I'm mansplaining, I'm sorry. The Oxford Dictionary defines sexism as prejudice, stereotyping, or discrimination typically against women on the basis of sex. Does okay, I have to actually look that up. Does Oxford Dictionary? Because I'm going to be pissed if that's the thing. Okay. Yes, Oxford Dictionary states prejudice, stereotyping, or discrimination typically against women on the basis of sex. So it's typically against women, which does not mean that it can't happen to men. And that's the problem that we're going to have. But the reality is that sexism is so much bigger than prejudice, stereotyping, and discrimination. No, it's not. All you're doing is bitching and complaining because you're not getting things for free. We need to reject this simplified definition of sexism and recognize the difference between sexism and gender-based prejudice. You can be you can be prejudiced against anything. It doesn't necessarily have to be a gender, it doesn't have to be a race. You can be prejudiced against a type of computer. You could be prejudiced against a TV show. The problem that you're having is that you think that sexism has anything to do with prejudice. All right. It's important to remember that dictionary definitions aren't always adequate. Oh, no, no, dictionary definitions are not always adequate unless it's the dictionary definition of feminism that gets spouted at anybody who decides to talk out against it. Are you fucking kidding me? You can't just say that the dictionary definition of feminism is the real thing, but something that you don't agree with. No, that's wrong. I'm sorry, it doesn't work that way. What you end up doing is creating a double standard. And if any of you in the chat understand my feelings on double standards, if you don't know them, here they are. Double standards are bullshit and should never happen. If you hold someone to one thing, you have to hold them to the other thing. And that they can be challenged. No, they can't. If you are going to put your foot down on the fact that feminism means, what the dictionary says that feminism means, you cannot then go and say, well, this definition is a little wishy-washy. We're going to change that up a bit. Your prejudice against the letter Y, but it's in your name twice. The dictionary tells me that a theory is an idea or set of ideas that is intended to explain facts or events. But in science, the word means something else. Yes, that's why when you look at the term in the dictionary, there's usually these numbers that are along with these little sentences that what the word means in different situations. Oh, um, see, this is the part you guys don't see when I'm recording. It's incredibly important that we unlearn this one dimensional, oversimplified definition of sexism and start understanding sexism as a broader system of oppressions. Because you want it to encompass everything. You want someone looking at you the wrong way to be considered sexist. You don't want it narrowed down so we can put a handle on it. You just want to see the fact that everything is sexist and you get to play your victim card all the goddamn time. A note on the language. In this article, I use the term non-men. I'm going to have to read non-men. To refer to those who are directly oppressed by sexism. Because we stop them from working on sites like Everyday Feminism, we don't let them on places like YouTube. It's almost impossible to find females or non-men in any type of popular medium like, oh, I don't know, movies, television, music. We make sure that they are oppressed and can't do anything. Yes, they're oppressed. Fuck the. I, I'm not even 5 paragraphs in. This is why I don't do many everyday feminism articles, because they would take forever. I do this because I think it's important to acknowledge that women aren't the only people who suffer from gender-based depression. Women aren't the only people who suffer from gender-based depression. That means the only other option we have is men. Oh, I'm sorry, non-men. Okay. Non-binary people, i.e., people who don't exist, the people that do not identify as either man or woman, people who don't exist, are also oppressed by sexism because they don't fucking exist. To uphold the idea that women are the only victims of sexism is to erase non-binary people. Non-binary is a term that came about a few years ago. Non-binary doesn't mean anything. You can't be non-binary. Gender your gender identity is what you identify as. Your sex, on the other hand, is man or woman. So there's no such thing as fucking non-binary people, and that is not taking into consideration the very, very, very low percentage of hermaphrodites or intergendered people. They do happen. Someone who is born with a man who is born with ovaries, who actually menstruates and doesn't know that's what's going on. That's happened. Or women who have testes. That's happened as well. They're genetic defects. They are defects, not the norm. They are 0.01% of the population. There's no such thing as non-binary. You are either a man or a woman. Oh, here we go. Oh, okay. I'm sorry. Everyday feminism is about to sound intelligent, and then they ruin everything. This is not to say that men aren't affected by sexism at all. Now, if I stopped reading right there, if I stopped, the rest of this article didn't exist, we could end on a high note. But they continue. Trans men and gender non-conforming men are particularly affected by sexism. Trans men, which means women, and non-gender conforming men, which means women, are particularly affected by sexism. This is because sexism doesn't exist in isolation. It interacts with a number of different forms of oppression in one overarching hierarchy. Mm, mm. I don't know how people get paid. Can I get paid to write schlock? Can someone pay me to write absolute garbage? Because if they do, I will quit whatever I'm doing now. If I get paid well enough, I can come up with bullshit like this on a daily basis. Oh my God. Because of hierarchy, certain men, particularly cisgendered, white, heterosexual, able bodied, middle class men, benefit from male privilege more than others. Okay. Answer me this, chat. Do any of you know what cis actually means? The identity of CIS. Do any of you know what that means? Oh, I know. It was very oddly specific because they want to get rid of an entire gender. They want to get rid of an entire half of the fucking population. Okay, so I still, do any of you know what cis actually means? No, CIS actually stands for something. It stands for comfortable in skin. Believe it or not. So if you are cisgendered, it doesn't necessarily mean that you are, as they put, heterosexual. Cisgendered just means that you're comfortable with yourself. So, me being comfortable with myself, I am a cisgendered white bisexual male. So, yes. Now, they use it as a derogatory term. They use it as a pejorative. They want to make it an insult. Cis actually means being on the same side of a plane. Well, I mean, I don't know if that's actually a thing, but in this context, cis means comfortable in skin. Can we go on a crusade? We need to. So that's what cis means. That I just wanted to make sure you guys knew what that meant. So when someone says cisgendered, they're not actually they're using it as a pejorative, no matter how they use it. And the fact that it's become mainstream is really sad. What would be the crusade against? Stupidity, bullshit, stupidity. Crusade against stuff like this. The ones who don't understand what common sense is. All right, let me continue. I don't want to get sidetracked. But this doesn't mean that marginalized men don't hold male privilege at all. Just that they have to face other kinds of oppression too. Because the homeless. I hate this. Here's the example. This was an actual headline. 25% of homeless people are women. This is a problem. That has nothing to do with the 75% of men that are homeless. No, they don't give a shit about that. But those 25% women hold more privilege over the males because they're the ones being talked about. And that's because they don't care about the men. If you ever get a chance and you want to listen to something, look up Karen Strawn on YouTube and look up her disposable male video. If it doesn't break your heart or wake your ass up to what's actually going on, none of this stuff will. The fact that they don't give a fuck about anything because men have male privilege, no matter what. Cis is Latin. It's where trans tran, transalpine Gauld, aka France, and Cisalpine Gauld, aka North Italy, came from when the Romans were talking about provinces or governorship. Okay, Zerg, now you're just being a smartass. So when they talk about male privilege, it doesn't matter the if the woman they're talking about is Carrie from Sex and the City. A homeless man has more privilege than she does, even though she's living high on the hog with as much expensive makeup and dresses and whatever bullshit that she owns. She has less privileges than the homeless person. These people can go suck a fucking dick because they need to put something in their mouth, or else I'm going to put my fist in it. And again, okay, that being said, whether some experiences male privilege or not often depends on what their gender is perceived to be. Some men, particularly trans men, might not pass as male, meaning that many people assume that them to be a woman and therefore treat them as such. In this case, they can experience very little, if any, male privilege. You notice they're not when they say that sexism and oppression can affect men, they always erase that by saying trans men, which are women trying to become men, and non-men, which are women, and they can't experience male privilege or they still experience oppression. You know what? I wish to the gods that the patriarchy actually existed, because I need that patriarchy money to pay my bills, okay? And I haven't received a single fucking check. So we haven't even gotten to the meat of the article yet. Let's get right into this. There are three key ways in which sexism and gender-based prejudice differ. Number one, pay attention, kiddies. Pay attention. Uncle Antwon's going to describe something to you, and that's going to be after I talk about this stupid thing. Number one, sexism is systematic. The first important thing to understand about sexism is that it is systematic. No, it's not. Sexism is not systematic. Sexism is actually individualistic. It is up to the person to be sexist or not. That one person does not mean the entire system feels that way. This is the whole term of not everyone is like that. Well, the system doesn't work that way. In this country, we have the equality of opportunity, not the equality of outcome. You have, whether you're a non-male, non-binary, agendered, demi-gendered, sexist, racist, homophobic, whatever you are, you have the same exact opportunities as the person standing next to you. If you do not capitalize on those opportunities, that is not my fucking fault. That's your fault for not doing everything you possibly could to be the best you are. You're getting a headache from this. Gender-based prejudice, on the other hand, is individual. No, sexism is individual as well. There is no on the other hand. Yes, they want equal outcome, which they'll never get. They can't have equal outcome, because once you okay, let's go down this, let's play this out, shall we? Okay, so we'll take America. Why not? America finally solves the equal outcome problem. There are now 50% female CEOs, because that's all they ever go off of, and 50% male CEOs. They have gender equality. Okay? That then, and we're only talking about one aspect of the business world, that then transfers into, well, how many of those men and women are transgendered? Because you can't have equal outcome if you don't take into consideration everything. So now, how many of those 50-50 men and women now have to lose their jobs to get 33%, 33.33333% transgenders, and 33% male and 33% female? But wait, there's more. Now we have to talk about the ones who are gender non-conforming. Okay, so now what percentage of those people are going to lose their job to make everything 25%? And once you start getting this, it will snowball out of control to the point where, since there are 76 different fucking genders and everyone wants representation, and we haven't even gotten into the racial representation of all this shit, how many people are then going to be CEOs? It's still going to be the same amount, but how many people have lost their jobs because of gender identity based quotas? That's what we're talking about. Yes, right now we're only talking about gender, but well, let's see. Let's see. A man is reading this, so men are at fault for me hearing it. The logic holds. Thank you, Greg. Well, yes, it gets to be a clusterfuck after that, and on top of that, nothing ever gets done. And that's only dealing with gender. Like I said, we're not dealing with race after that. You can never have equality of outcome. Never. Because if you had equality of outcome, there would be so many people who are qualified to do those jobs that will not have those jobs anymore. And we will be given people who are less qualified because they tick off a certain amount of boxes. All right, let's move on. When I say systematic, I mean that a number of different factors interact and result in the oppression of people perceived to be non-men. Of course you do, because in your view, the systems are geared towards helping men, even though if the patriarchy did exist, a lot of the stuff that is going on that is protecting women would not be there. And all women would still be nothing more than baby factories. There would be no women in the workplace. There would be no women on YouTube, no women writing for everyday feminism. I can tell you this, the suffragettes wouldn't have gotten as far as they did. Second wave feminism wouldn't have happened. Third wave feminism wouldn't have happened. Fourth wave feminism won't happen. All this gender-based bullshit wouldn't have happened. Oh, I'm sure it's more than 76. I know you're not a goddamn baby factory, but that's what I'm saying. If if the patriarchy existed, that's all you would be seen as. The systems that they're talking about the legal system, they're talking about the they're talking about the work systems, they're talking about the governments, the corporations. That's the systems they're talking about. And they're saying that those systems are geared toward helping men, even though there are hundreds of different laws that are saying that are there to help women. Again, I point out that there are thousands upon thousands of female run safe houses and domestic violence shelters in this country alone for women, women only, and for children, for male children up to a certain age. There is one men's shelter in the entirety of this country, and it's in fucking Nebraska, I think. So I have a problem with this stupid shit saying that there are systems of oppression that are set in to help men when it's not true. I've been through some of those systems. Okay, they haven't helped me one iota. Not one. As a matter of fact, they've let my ex-wife basically run away with my son. I haven't heard from him in 4 years. Okay. Sexism doesn't exist in isolation. It is ingrained into its institutions like the education system, where, more women are graduating than men, and more boys in high school and elementary school are being put on drugs to calm them down. More girls and women are succeeding in the education system, but it's a system, it's a sexist system geared towards helping men. Religious bodies, okay, that one I have to give them to. Most religious bodies are very much men run, can't argue that. The legal system, again, we talked about this just a little bit ago, it's geared towards women. The media is feminist organized. It's my ideas, the way that I talk, the way that I think. The media thinks I'm an asshole. I'm an outlier. I'm the punk rock of this generation because my ideas do not conform to what the media and the laws and everything else in magazines, all of that govern. Governments, corporations, and even NGOs and charity organizations. Most charity organizations are actually run by women. These institutions have power, and often Unintentionally or not, they uphold male privilege while oppressing those who aren't men. Oh, that's not even a link. I can't click on that because they have no fucking evidence of that. Sorry, don't mean to scream. Let's use an example to illustrate this idea. A woman married a man who was abusive. She didn't want to have children because of her circumstances, but because of cis, sexist, misogynistic laws and social dynamics, she doesn't have access to adequate contraception and abortion. The fuck she doesn't. The fuck she doesn't. There are hundreds of places where you can go to get free contraception, especially if you can't pay for it. On top of that, those places usually have, counselors you can talk to. And if you are being abused and you tell them that you're being abused, not only will they help you get a fuck away from the person that's abusing you, they'll pretty much hide you away. But, and let's not talk about Planned Parenthood giving away condoms and giving away things like that. There are also tricks you can do. Being a woman, if the guy doesn't want to wear a condom, give him a blowjob. But when you give him a blowjob, you put the condom in your mouth and you roll it on his penis when it happens. It's not free. That's why they don't have access to adequate contraception. Like spermicides, cervical caps. My God, I went through this on the Sandman video. There are 100 different types of birth control. It's not just the pill. It's not just an IUD. It's not just the shot. There are other ways. Sorry. She ends up having 2 children. She wants to leave her husband, but she's unable to do so for a number of reasons. Name them. If she were to leave her husband, she would struggle financially. Why? Why would she struggle financially? Because does she not have family? I'm sorry, Cass. She's unlikely to be hired because she has small children, and companies are often prejudiced towards mothers who have young children as they believe the woman would rather concentrate on homemaking than on their work. That is a fallacy. Okay? One, there's daycare. Now, I understand daycare is very expensive. I know. I've looked into it because I have a child of my own. She has family. She has friends. Being able to work while you have small children does not stop you from the ability of working. It just means that they didn't want to hire you. Oh, here's the thing. Don't put that you have children on your resume. Here's a trick for any women in the chat. Cass, this is for you. If you are pregnant and you want to get hired and you're not showing yet, so in the first 2-3 months, don't put that you're pregnant. Don't tell them in the interview that you're pregnant. After you get hired and you've been working for, 2 months and you start to show, say, you know what, I found out I was pregnant after I got hired. Guess what? The company's not going to like it, but they'll go, okay, you get maternity leave. Exactly, Greg. Exactly. There's also a fallacy where it presumes you wouldn't do the work and be able to take care of the children. It may be a no-brainer, Cassie, but people don't know it. They don't think of it that way. Men don't get maternity leave. We barely get paternity leave. Do you want to know when I talked to my boss about getting paternity leave to spend time with my newborn daughter, I got a hard time for it? I wanted to take a week off, just one, so I could help in the first week of my daughter's life. I got shit for it. She didn't receive any tertiary education because she was socialized to believe that women should focus on being wives and mothers rather than on education. Bullshit! That's her choice. Her choice was to not get tertiary education. Tertiary, which means that's not even going to college. That's going to finishing school. That's going into doctorates. Now, I'm assuming they meant secondary education because that means college. Didn't get tertiary education means she's been to college and didn't get further than that. But that's all choice. That's not on the men, and that's not on being socialized to believe that women should focus on being wives and mothers. Because if you look at the education today, if you look at the education system today, and you look at the media today, it is all about pushing women to do better than their ancestors. Doing better than your mother is your goal. You are supposed to be the top dogs. Women beat men 4-1 in education, but they're being told that they are only supposed to be wives and mothers. How about you take this and shove it so far up your ass that you can taste your own nail polish? Even if she were able to secure a job, women are statistically less likely to earn less than men for doing the same work, and she'll never be able to earn as much as what her husband earns. Bullshit! This is the pay gap, the wage gap, whatever you want to call it. It's an earnings gap. If I start a job at the exact same time as my next door neighbor who happens to be a woman, we will earn the exact same. If we have the exact same hours. Cass, you are the exception. Didn't you know that? The if we get hired at the exact same time, work the exact same hours, take the exact same vacation, take the exact time off, we will make the exact same. If I end up making more than her, if I end up having more at the end of the year because they pay her less than me, she can then use me as an example and take the company we work for to court because it is a federal law. Additionally, she's more likely to be sexually harassed at work, and if she spoke out about it, she might lose her job and be unable to support her children. Okay, that one I can't take away from that fact that sexual harassment happens at work. Being afraid to speak out about it, well, that's on you. There are whistleblower laws. Whistleblower laws stop you from losing your job for doing something like this. Now, if you call sexual harassment and it's not sexual harassment, guess what? Then you can be fired. No, that's why, Tom, that's why it's an earnings gap, not an actual wage gap. Men work more hours, men are more willing to take overtime. Women are, on average, more eager to spend time at home doing social things, not working, spending time with friends, spending time with family, having children, things like that. So it's an earnings gap, not a wage gap. And they keep saying it's a wage gap and they keep pushing this number that doesn't exist. On top of this, her church condemns divorce even when one spouse is abusive, and she risks losing the support of her religious community if she were to leave her husband. So the example that we're giving of this woman is she's actually a Muslim. That's good to know because there's no church besides that, no religion besides that, that condemns abuse. No, because they won't count the family unit because they want to push the narrative that women are oppressed. The what is the Jew wage gap? The fact that they run everything? Thank you. The Asian American wage gap is even more. Asian Americans make $1.25 compared to any white person in America. For every dollar that I make, there's an Asian out there that makes $1.25 more than me through the earnings gap. So I don't know if this author understands religion, but the religion that they're describing is actually Islam. They consider abusive relationships with the wife to be okay. The man is supposed to be subservient. Even Mormonism, which I know about because of Gwen, they're not okay with spousal abuse. Catholics are not okay with spousal abuse. Christians are not okay with spousal abuse. Don't you know the Caucasian Americans Day is every day? Okay, let me continue on. Her circumstances did not arise because of one person's prejudice. She is trapped in a difficult, dangerous situation because a number of different systems interacted to oppress her. No, she's in this situation because of choices she made. It has nothing to do with the systems. What, to abuse someone? It's legal in Tennessee if you're on the courthouse steps. That's awesome. Let me take my ex to Tennessee. The thing about oppressions is that it traps you. You can move away from a single bigoted person who is making sexist comments, but you can't get away from a set of systems that governs every aspect of your life. Again, you gave us examples, but you didn't give us you gave us examples of the outcome, not the choices she made to be in those situations. And of course, in that example, I only mentioned examples of gender based oppression. Other forms of oppression might intersect with sexism, making her situation even more difficult. Again, it's all about individual responsibility, the choices that she made. Okay, I can choose to quit my job today. I can when I see my boss on or I can choose to quit my job on Monday. When I see my boss, I can hand in my stuff and say, look, I'm done. And choose to do YouTube full time. It would be pain in the ass. It would be difficult and it would be almost as stupid as how it sounds. But that would be my choice. I cannot blame YouTube or any of the subscribers or anything like that for my choice. That's individual responsibility. In the examples, all of her individual choices led her to those situations. And this fucking author is blaming men and the systems of oppression on her choices. I will eventually do it full time, but I'm talking about like doing it tomorrow. Let's say she's black. She's likely to earn even less than a white woman. Ugh, I'm not going to touch on that again. Let's say she's bisexual and she tries to visit a therapist who is prejudiced towards her because of her sexual orientation, and therefore therapy is more harmful than helpful. Then you go to a different therapist. And I don't know anyone who's really upset about a woman being bisexual. When they find out a woman is bisexual, the first thing they go is, "Oh, sexy time." Unless it's a feminist, and then they go, "Ew, sexy time." Perhaps she's fat, and when she visits her doctor after being physically assaulted by her husband, her doctor fat shames her. This results in her avoiding getting medical attention altogether. Are you fucking kidding me? Okay, I'm overweight. All right, I'm 6'3", and I'm pushing 350. I'm overweight. I know I am. I've talked to you people about. I've talked to you guys about on Discord about my back hurting. Right? I think I have a pinched nerve. My Gwen is worried that I may have slipped a disc. I know if I go to the doctor, the first thing he's going to tell me is that my back problem is because of my weight. After I tell him, yes, I know I'm overweight. You need to look at the problem. I would still be able to go. I don't care about him saying anything about fat shaming. You know what I meant by you people. I would rather. I still have to go to urgent care if my back doesn't get better. But that doesn't mean it's going to stop me if my doctor says, "Hey, you could lose a few pounds." If that's all it takes for you to avoid getting medical attention altogether, one visit, maybe it really wasn't that important in the first place. These other forms of oppression work along with sexism, making her situation even worse. Only because she's an oversensitive fat black woman that doesn't want to take responsibility for her actions. Give me a second, folks. Hello. Yes, I also have used a heating pad. It makes it better when I use a heating pad, so I think it is a pinched nerve, but it hasn't unpinched itself. I have to be friendly. I have to be friendly to the people that come on unless they piss me off. Okay, let's. How much more do we? Oh my god, I'm not going to get to finish this, am I? There's a bit more. There's a lot more. All right, let's take a look at how men might be affected by gender-based discrimination. Let's imagine a situation of a man who is physically abused by his wife. Because of gender-based stereotypes, the abuse of men by women is often turned into a joke or ignored by most society. Of course it is, because we are supposed to be manly. We are supposed to be. I am friendly to my patrons. You, you know what? Here, I'll show you how friendly I am, Cass. Because not only is this a serious problem, but it's also one that feminists are working actively to dismantle. Oh, sure you are. I'm sure you're actively acting to dismantle the jokes that get made about men being abused by women. You praise it. And when men do come out and say something about it, you then go cry me a river, or you hold up your mug that says male tears and you drink with a smirk on your face. But unlike the woman in the previous example, he is less likely to struggle as much financially if he were to leave his abusive partner. Yes, he is much more able-bodied to continue to leave his abusive partner because it takes a lot more to make the man leave. And he knows that he just has to keep doing what he's doing. He knows he can rely on his friends to go crash on someone's couch for a while. Yes, and they it's even funnier when they say, I want to bathe in male tears, and I'm like, there's a porn for that. If you want, it's very popular in Japan. He's less likely to face gender-based discrimination when applying for jobs. Depends on the job. If I'm applying to be a secretary, do you honestly think that they're going to pick me over a woman? I can tell you they're not, because I don't look good in a little black dress when I go to the Christmas party. As a single father of young children, he's less likely to be discriminated against and demonized than a single mother. Well, that's because it's called single woman bait. If a man is showing his emotional side with his child, they see him as a protector. Are you okay? Are you okay? Are you okay, Scourgeborn? When a man is showing I when I put on a dress, I make it classy, okay? Stockings, garter belt, the whole thing. As when a single father is showing affection to his child, it shows that he is a protector, and that usually tugs on the heartstrings of single women, even non-single women. So this is nothing. Thank you, Fermion. This doesn't mean his experiences weren't painful or difficult. It does mean that we shouldn't care about men who experience domestic violence. It's $100 Patreon donation. Trust me, you don't want to see me in a dress. It's to say that his male privilege makes his situation easier to that of non-men in the same situation. Male privilege makes it a little more possible to leave his situation. No, choices make it more possible for him to leave the situation. I'm not putting on a dress. It's not happening. You don't want to see me in a dress. Trust me. As you can see, sexism is a broad system. When we conflate sexism with gender based prejudice, we ignore and erase the ways in which institutions work together to trap and oppress men. Non men, I'm sorry. That whole thing was just a mishmash of bullshit. You notice that we only got 2 examples for the men, but they had like 8 examples for the women. It's because they want to make sure that we pay attention to the women's. Sexism, number 2. We're on to number 2, finally. And there's only 3. I've looked. Super chat from Moondoggy. Dance, monkey, dance. Exactly. More women is more diversity. Sexism doesn't require intention, except it does. If you intend to be sexist, then you're going to be sexist. Microaggressions don't count. Okay, microaggressions are bullshit. And the professor who came up with the idea of microaggressions hates what they're being used for. If we look at sexism as a system, which it's not, it's a word, we can use the word sexist to describe actions that reflect and perpetuate this system. Yes, and if you use sexism as a system, you can turn anything into sexist. That's how it works. That's what they want to do. It's just like everything that they disagree with is fascism and Nazis or white nationalists. Those are the new terms. Let's use a really simple example to illustrate this idea. Another simple example. Okay. I always think my examples are pretty simplistic. These are downright dumb. My friend once shared a meme that sexualized a female sports star and implied that her achievements didn't matter because she was hot. What sport was it? What sport was it? Was it foxy boxing? Because if it was foxy boxing, yes, it's because she was hot. If it was Ronda Rousey, she's hot and she can whoop someone's ass. No, that's very, very true. They use a lot of academic jargon because they want to sound smarter than they really are. Uh, it could have been Danica Patrick. I don't know. They don't show the meme. When we called my friend on this, he said it's not sexist because being bisexual, he would have shared the same exact meme if it weren't about an attractive male. If it were about an attractive male sports star. He argued that his actions weren't sexist because they could have applied to men and women. But here's the thing: his actions didn't exist in a vacuum. No, he shared a funny meme, you called him out on it, and and him being your friend, he knows how you are, so he's trying to dissuade you from arguing this fact. He just wanted to share a meme, and you called him out on it. It's a picture with words on it. It doesn't matter in the long run. If memes mattered, Ugandan knuckles would still be as important now as it was a month ago. Memes don't matter. They are jokes. And the fucking fact that you can't deal with jokes shows exactly why your friend doesn't want to talk to you. They exist in the context of a society that devalues and underpays female athletes, discourages women from playing sports, and asserts that women's value depends entirely on her physical appearance. Okay, here's my example. Last year, the professional women's soccer team got farther in the female World Cup than the males did. So everyone was pushing that the female soccer players were better than the male soccer players and should make the exact same amount. And I can give another example of this too in just a second. So, in a scrimmage, the professional female soccer players went up against a Bush League third rate all male soccer team. Guess who won? And guess how big of a blowout it was? It was 5-1. Now, in soccer, or football for you foreigners, sounds funny coming from me, um, that's a wide margin. They got destroyed. Now, here's my other example that blows this out the fuck out of the water. How's it going, Onveer? I hope I said that right. Here's the other example. Ronda Rousey. Ronda Rousey was the bantamweight champion for UFC. Not the female bantamweight champion, but she was the bantamweight champion. She just happened to be in the female category. Ronda Rousey got asked so many times, do you feel that you should make as much as Sugar Ray Leonard? And when she answered, everybody got pissed. Well, every feminist got pissed because she said, I've only had 3 major fights. Sugar Ray Leonard has had about 50. I deserve how much I'm making now. When I've gone to my 50th fight, I'll be making just as much as him. She understands that she's making what she makes because of what she pulls in. The female athletes put exactly, she got a lot of respect for that. The female athletes do put in a lot of work, but people don't go to see the female athletes as much as they go to see the male athletes. Now, women's professional basketball is not popular at all. Men's professional basketball is very popular. Well, you can't pay the female athletes if they're not pulling in the dollars. It's plain and simple. All right, I'm going to continue on. Hopefully, we'll get to the end of this. Hopefully, not making any promises. The meme therefore perpetuated and reflected sexism. Because of course it did. If the meme was about a male athlete, it would not have been nearly as harmful because it exists in a society where male athletes are highly valued and encouraged to participate in sports. Yes, because people like watching them. Here's another example of something blowing that out of proportion, or blowing that out of the water. Lingerie football. It's a thing. It's called the Lingerie League, where women on a football team run around in pads and a helmet, but are wearing basically bra and panties. It's a real thing. They really get paid for it. There's an actual Super Bowl style thing. Watch it. These women attack each other like they're wearing pads all the way through. They are brutal, but it's a sideshow. Men and women only go to see it to watch the women in the sexy panties beat each other up. People who watch regular football see it for the gameplay. And there are starting to be more female fans of football as well. So that, yes, men are encouraged to participate in sports because women like strong, strapping, towering, buff lads. I'm sorry. It's how it is. It's how it's always going to be. Yes, it's rugby, but in underwear. So while my friend might not have held a conscious prejudice against female athletes, his actions were ultimately harmful. To the athlete? Did the athlete see it? Did the female who he made the meme of see the meme and say something about it to you specifically, saying how it hurt her feelings? Are you fucking kidding me? The only person it hurt, the only person that was being offended by it was you. There's no other person to be offended by the meme. You took offense to it. The meme was most likely reinforced others' prejudice thinking while hurting and discouraging female athletes. Or it's a meme. It's a fucking picture. It's a joke. Grow some fucking humor and common sense. Grow the pair of them. Humor and common sense. It will help you so much in the fact of living your life. This next sentence. This next sentence is something I never thought I was going to say. Contributing to its virality, even in a small way, propagates sexism. Memes are sexist, folks. You've heard it here. Memes are sexist, they are racist, and they're goddamn funny. A picture should not be the end all be all. Do you guys remember when they tried to ban the word bossy? I remember ban bossy. It was as stupid then as it is now. I remember it. The women in that in that commercial, the women that they spotlighted were called bossy. Did it stop them? Did it stop them from being CEOs? Did it stop them from being successful? No, it didn't. So the word bossy is not something that matters. The word, if one small thing like that stops you from doing what you wanted, what is being said that you wanted to do, you really didn't want to fucking do it. You were looking for an excuse not to do it. Often, people believe that their actions aren't harmful because they didn't intend for them to be harmful. This leads to people getting hurt and becoming defensive if we call their actions harmful. I've been doing this since about 3:30. Exactly. The ones who became successful didn't let it matter. Did that kind of thing matter? So this little paragraph, often people believe that their actions aren't harmful because they didn't intend for them to be harmful. This leads to people getting hurt and becoming defensive and when we call their actions harmful. Well, okay. So fucking what? It's a meme. It's a joke. It's a word. It shouldn't affect you. It should not affect anything you do. If you let it affect you, then whatever it is you were supposed to be doing didn't need to happen. If we understand sexism as a system and not simply an individual prejudice, we'll begin to understand that intention is not as important as impact. You're right, because if you use sexism as a system, you can make everything you want sexist. This is what they want. I'm going to continue to say it. They continually show the examples that they want to term everything sexist so that they can do what the fuck they want with society. If you say something that they don't like, you're sexist. Get him fired. Oh, you like that video game because you get to play a woman who is in very skin tight clothing and she beats the living shit out of everyone? Well, that's sexist. You don't get to have it anymore. Well, it's 6 a.m. where I am, so I don't know if you're sorry. I appreciate you guys hanging out and watching and things like that there. I really do. Okay. Where was I? We can hurt someone whether we intend to or not. We can oppress someone whether we are consciously prejudiced towards them or not. No, you can't. Again, that's a microaggression, and microaggressions do not exist. You can say they exist, but they don't. And the fact that you use the term micro means that they are so fucking small, it does not matter in the long run. And if that's the case, then they shouldn't affect you. Sexism doesn't require our intentional discriminatory attitudes to thrive. We can cultivate a sexist society without consciously intending to. No, no, you can't. I would love to go to Denny's. I have no money though. This is why we need to constantly be conscious of our actions and the way we could further entrench sexism. No, 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 no. If you are constantly conscious of your actions, then you are stepping on eggshells around everyone. Lo-fi, darling, I would microaggress on you as much as I could. Oh, I could go for a grand slam right now. If no one needs to walk around on eggshells, and if you continue to think that you have to be this conscious person that has to be careful in what you say, I'm sorry, your life is going to be horrible. And apparently, this author's life is horrible. I'm so yes, I'm still going, Reaper. Anyway, I will be right back. I have to go do something, and I'll get to number 3, which is gender-based prejudice can target people of any gender, but sexism goes one way. I'll be right back because that's a load of crap. Okay. Yes, we'll be back right after these commercials. All right, gender-based prejudice can target people of any gender, but sexism goes one way. Now, if you remember at the beginning of this, they did say what the definition of sexism was. And it does say typically against women. Typically means, on average, it happens. So when it does happen, it usually is towards women. It doesn't mean that it can't happen to men. So sexism doesn't just go one way. This is the whole you can't be racist towards white people thing. Anyway, I could hold some prejudiced opinions about men. I'm sure you could. And I'm sure you have about 3 cups that say male tears on them. I'm sure you have a "This is my feminist agenda" T-shirt, and you also probably have "This is what a feminist looks like" T-shirt on it. That was made by small children in a factory. They were only being paid 38 cents an hour for 12-hour workdays. But you go ahead and you wear that shirt with pride. I could believe that men shouldn't cry because it would make them soft in your eyes, and then they're not worthy of fucking. But they are worthy of you pushing your ideas on and making them do what you want and kind of tempting them and saying that, I may have sex with you, but because I've seen you cry, we're just going to have an emotional relationship. They're going to have an emotional connection. Progressive with a child, yes. Yeah, it was, the kids really rallied and they started punching them in the ankles and things like that, and they finally gave them a raise from 35 cents to 38 cents. I could believe that men should be sporty and physical because that's what you're attracted to. I could believe that men always have to be the breadwinners. That, you know what, I'm not even going to touch on that one. If you still believe that, then that's a problem. Especially, forgive me, especially in current year. But men would still not experience gender-based oppression. I could have gender-based prejudices against men, but I cannot oppress men on the basis of their gender. That is not true. Let's take I don't know. Let's take a secretary's job for example. A nurse's job. Let's go with nurse. Nurses are genuinely and generally women. The head nurse is usually a woman. The second in command is usually a woman. If you are the only male nurse on staff, I can guarantee you that you get the short end of the stick every fucking time. That could be considered sexism. And sexism doesn't just go one way. So I don't want to hear this shit. If if I could be a stay-at-home dad, I would. And that's just one opinion. That's just one example of the fact that there could be sexism against men. My mom worked after my mom and dad, before my mom and dad got divorced. My mom was working 4 jobs, 4, and 2 of them she didn't get paid for. She was volunteering, and she was volunteering at mine and my brother's school, so she could actually spend time with us. Regardless of my opinion, men will still earn more on average than non-men. Non-men. Non-men are still more likely to suffer from sexual and gender-based violence. Male supremacy will still exist. There's no such thing as the patriarchy. And if there is, they haven't given me my monthly check for like the last 36 years. This is not to say that it's okay to hold gender-based prejudices about men. Perpetuating stereotypes about any gender can be extremely harmful. No fucking shit. If we hold the belief that there is one right way to perform gender, how do you perform gender? What is performing a gender? Can someone explain to me what performing gender means? We are policing the way people behave. And that is not okay. This can be partially damaging to people who don't conform to gender stereotypes. That's very true, Scourgeborn. How, what perform gender? What the? Anyway, but men who experience oppression based on the way they express their gender are still not oppressed on the basis of gender itself. You see that? This right here. This bullshit sentence shows why feminists don't give a fuck about women who are trying to be men and men who are trying to be women. They don't care about the trans people of society. They just give a fuck about the narrative that they can push. That's all they want. Men who experience oppression based on the way they express their gender. So if you express your gender as a woman and you're a man, they don't care. You're still a man. That's all. That is to say, they're not experiencing that oppression because they're men. Yes, that's exactly what you said. It's exactly what you said. Non-men, on the other hand, experience gender-based oppression because they aren't men. You mean they're women? They're women. So they aren't men, which means they're women. That's pretty cut and dry. Open and shut right there. I Are we almost done? Oh good. We need to challenge the oversimplified mainstream definitions of sexism. But but you need to challenge the definitions of sexism, but don't you dare challenge the definitions of feminism, because that is set in stone. You want to make sure that is exactly what it says. It is imperative that we think critically about what oppression truly is, how it manifests, and what it looks like. Do you want to know, do you want to know what oppression truly is, how it manifests, and what it looks like? I'll give you a really good example. Here's a perfect example. Your fucking website. Your goddamn website is a perfect example of what all of that really is. Everyday feminism. And this is the last line, the very last line. After all, we can't effectively fight sexism if we're not sure what it is. You haven't you haven't experienced not experienced. You haven't explained what the fuck sexism or any of it is anyway. You just want to say sexism is being used as a system so you can make everything sexist. No, they can't fight it because they have no idea what it is themselves. And then there's a link. There's a link below that says, "Found this article helpful? Please keep publishing. Please help us keep publishing more like it by becoming a member." No, I don't want. No, I didn't find this article helpful. I found this article extremely aggravating. The name of the author is Sian Ferguson, who is a contributing writer at Everyday Feminism. She is a South excuse me. She is a South African feminist currently studying towards a bachelor's of social science degree, majoring in English language and literature and gender studies at the University of Cape Town, South Africa. Imagine my shock. She's doing a social science degree on gender studies. She has been featured as a guest writer on websites such as Women24 and Foxy Box, while also writing for her personal blog. In her spare time, she tweets excessively, reads about current affairs, and spends time with her gorgeous group of friends. I just Oh, I know. The only thing she gets to do with that with that bachelor's of social science in language and literature and gender studies, is she gets to do more things like this and write these degrees. I don't know. There's no link attached to the Foxy box, so I don't know if it has to do with boxing. And there, you see how long that took? That's how it usually is when I'm doing an actual recording for help for the Guildless. That's how long it takes. And then I have to actually edit that down. Yeah, it sounds like a campsite. Nude boxing. I'm okay with nude boxing. As long as they're hot. Remember, we can't, that's how it works. We have to make sure it's sexist. We have to keep up that sexist stereotype because it's part of the system. If we don't work with the system, it's not going to work. Brazilian waxing. I thank you. I guess I didn't. I happy I could sound like it. If that's a good thing. What did you have to design for them, Zerg? I no, I don't think we need. I don't think we need Lo-Fi waxing her asshole on live on stream. Oh, I bet you were exposed to the bullshit. I bet you ran and hid as well. It's very true. You don't always get what you want, but sometimes you get what you need. Well, she hasn't done it yet. Okay, so before we go any farther, I want to do something really quickly. So, I have I have put up a new design in a merchandise store. If you guys want, take a look. I'm going to be putting up all of the designs that I have for merchandise. I'm shilling myself out right now. Yes, I understand. But I just did, what, 4 hours of a live stream? I think it's worth it. Tom, that is a really good question and one I don't really think that I want answered because that's just weird. Um, hold on a second. Well, Lo-Fi has her own designs that she's going to be doing, so I can't. I mean, do you want me to do one for you, Lo-Fi? Well, I haven't had any problems with Redbubble yet. Memorial for Villains Memorial. That's crack waxing. Yeah, I can do one for you. I don't know if Zell. I know Brockus wants to do his own thing, so I can do one for you and one for Zell. I can set them up tomorrow night. So that's the shilling I'm gonna do for myself for this. I also have, you know, if you guys want to join my, if you're not part of my Discord, the link should be in the description. You can join me on Discord and stuff like that. But I hope you guys enjoyed this. I did enjoy reading the. Which one? Oh, you're talking about the Proper Villains Journal. I fixed it. Um, and then the journal that you can buy with the new Antwon thing, it's two images of his face. So you when you open it, is it off? Oh, you're talking about off. That's because if I centered it, it wouldn't be. If you open it and you look at both sides, it would. Um, I couldn't center it that way. Like if I shrunk the image anymore, I can try and fix it. Yeah, and well, I've been streaming for God knows how long. Um, but I hope you guys enjoyed me reading the Amazon reviews of the gummy bears, the creepy story, um, and then the not so creepy story, and then me doing a live basically help for the Guildless episode. So, more than likely, I will be doing live streams like this, and hopefully, I'll be able to get OBS and stuff like that on my and do more, so you're not just staring at my avatar. But thank you guys for joining me. I really appreciate it, and I will have a new video for you guys tomorrow morning. All you have to do is wait for this to finish processing after I stop the broadcast, and you can hear them. Well, I'm glad she enjoys Rickist. No, I couldn't find the blue shag carpet one. All right, guys. Thank you very much. Like I said, I'll have another video. I'll have an actual video out for you guys tomorrow. Um, I know Cass is going to enjoy it because she knows what article I'm going to be responding to. So I will see you guys later. If you want, like I said, link for Patreon, make a support, PayPal, all that is down below if you want to help out the channel. Also, my link to the Discord and everything like that. So I will see you guys later. Have a good night, or morning, day, whatever.